Musk. Do I believe Biden won? We're better off being run by people picked at random from the phone.
Sure, anymore what normal means.
No, but I mean, like, you know, just, I don't know, just sort of.
You want somebody who's competent. It's not true that the election in 2020 was rigged. It wasn't stolen. And I wonder on the platform, when you see
yes.
that.
Getting things done. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made every day.
Our very own Tesla and Twitter CEO Elon Musk sat down with CNBC's David Faber for an exclusive interview from Austin, Texas, during Tesla's annual shareholder meeting. During the course of their approximately hour-long conversation, Musk reflected on various topics that may be of interest. He expressed his political views, including his belief that Joe Biden won the 2020 election and it wasn't stolen, but that he thinks there was at least some voting fraud. He also said he voted for Biden, but hinted he wasn't happy with his choice, though he didn't explicitly make an endorsement, but by saying, "I wish we could have just a normal human being as president." Elon Musk and politics. Elon Musk has tweeted about political topics regularly since taking over Twitter, often belittling some liberal causes, but what he stands for remains largely unclear. He has called himself an independent and a centrist, yet economically right of center maybe. He has said he was until recently a supporter of only Democrats and voted for President Biden. He's encouraged people to vote Republican, which he said he did for the first time this year. He once even declared himself indifferent about politics, saying he'd rather stay out of it altogether. Elon Musk, ever a bundle of contradictions and inconsistencies, has long made his politics tricky to pin down. To many of his critics, though, his relentless flurry of tweets in the 6 weeks since he took over Twitter has exposed his true conservative bent and intensified their fears that he would make the social network more susceptible to right-wing misinformation. And at times, he's made it hard to argue with that. He has said he'd welcome former President Donald J. Trump back on Twitter, suggested that Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband was lying about the attack at their home that left him hospitalized, and reinstated accounts that have trafficked in offensive ethnic stereotypes and bigotry, including for the artist formerly known as Kanye West. Mr. Musk later suspended Mr. West's account again after the rapper-entrepreneur posted an image of a swastika. His copious tweeting has generated huge amounts of attention. In a 24-hour period in a week, he tweeted more than 40 times, often with little rhyme or reason. He criticized the Biden administration's deal with Russia that freed Brittany Griner, the Women's National Basketball Association star. He asked Elton John to clarify his complaint about misinformation flourishing unchecked on Twitter. At times, Mr. Musk was acting like Twitter's in-house customer service representative, boasting about new features and improved functions. And maybe that is a big part of the point, improving the image of his new $44 billion property, which he has said repeatedly is in dire financial straits. Yet Mr. Musk, who did not respond to a request for comment, continues to defy easy political categorization. His views have been described as libertarian, though these days his politics seem more contrarian than anything else. He is more clear about what he is against than what he is for. It's true, Mr. Musk certainly sounds a lot like a Republican, and sometimes a lot like Mr. Trump, with his missives on Twitter against woke politics and COVID restrictions, his attacks on elite media, and his efforts to draw attention to allegations that Hunter Biden profited from his father's political clout. But where Mr. Musk has seemed most in line with the GOP of Mr. Trump is in the tenor of his political commentary, which, if anything, seems more spiritedly anti-left than ideologically pro-right. While he has not been shy about sharing his disdain for many Democrats, his enthusiasm for Republicans has been more muted. He has stressed repeatedly that his problems are with extremists on both ends of the political spectrum. To be clear, my historical party affiliation has been independent, with an actual voting history of entirely Democrat until this year, he wrote on Twitter the day before the midterm election, and I'm open to the idea of voting Democrat again in the future. As with many people who describe themselves as politically independent now, the hostility Mr. Musk harbors towards Democrats appears to have drawn him closer to the Republican Party over the last few years. He considers himself as part of the center 80% of people who wish to learn, laugh, and engage in reasoned debate. He has eagerly encouraged his followers to weigh in with their views on the country's culture wars and traded tweets with some of the right's favorite punching bags, like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, when she criticized his plan to charge Twitter users $8 a month to have a verified account with one of the social media service's signature blue checkmarks. LMAO at a billionaire earnestly trying to sell people on the idea that free speech is actually an $8 a month subscription plan, she wrote. He dismissed her. "Your feedback is appreciated. Now pay $8, Mr. Musk shot back. Many of his recent tweets have had that kind of own the libs tone, the shorthand on the right for when conservatives think they've deftly, often sarcastically, swatted down a liberal. Last year, he posted video on Twitter of a closet full of t-shirts with the slogan #StayWoke that he said he had found at the social media company's headquarters. Then he followed up with a tweet that linked to a Justice Department report that undercut one of the central narratives of the mass protests against police brutality, that Michael Brown, a black teenager killed by the police in Ferguson, Missouri, had his hands raised when a white officer shot him. On occasion, his remarks have raised concerns that he has planted himself firmly among right-wing conspiracy theorists. When he tweeted about the attack on Miss Pelosi's husband, he shared the unfounded claim that there was a tiny possibility there might be more to this story than meets the eye. He later deleted the tweet, which linked to an article from a fringe website. He also said he would support Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida for president in 2024, though his endorsement was not especially resounding. He merely replied yes when someone on Twitter asked him. Mr. DeSantis, a hard-line conservative, would be an odd choice for someone who professes to want centrist governance in Washington. Mr. Musk has always claimed his concerns with Twitter's previous management were about the ability of a small group of the company's employees, whom he described as far left, to censor content. It's been a mixed bag of revelations. Some showed how Twitter employees made it harder to see tweets from a Stanford University professor who warned about how COVID lockdowns could harm children, a view many public health experts have come around to accept well after the fact. Other documents show how more conventional, conspiracy theory-embracing conservatives were shut down, like Dan Bongino, the radio host who was one of the biggest amplifiers of lies about the 2020 election. Mr. Musk has not professed to have any profound attachment to Republican policies, though, which is consistent with his posture before taking over Twitter. He has been highly critical of climate change deniers and said he's proud of how Tesla forced the rest of the automobile industry to embrace electric vehicles. In 2020, he revealed that he'd spoken to Mr. Trump numerous times about the importance of developing sustainable energy, which the former president dismissed in favor of traditional fossil fuel-based sources, and Mr. Musk quit Mr. Trump's business counsels after the administration pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. In an interview with the New York Times in 2020, he described his politics as middle of the road. He said, "I'm socially very liberal, and then economically right of center maybe, or center. I don't know, I'm obviously not a communist." His political giving supports that claim. According to the Federal Election Commission, which reports spending in federal but not state races, he has donated just shy of $1 million since 2003 to candidates as conservative as former President George W. Bush and as liberal as Senator Dianne Feinstein, a California Democrat. More recently, in 2020, he donated to senators of both political parties, including Chris Coons and Gary Peters, both Democrats, and Susan Collins and John Cornyn, both Republicans. Political or personal? Often, it seems, his posts are motivated by personal pique, not political philosophy. He's criticized the Biden administration, for instance, as not the friendliest and for excluding Tesla, the world's largest electric vehicle maker, from a White House summit on zero-emission vehicles in August 2021. His speculation on the reason for the exclusion? General Motors and the other car companies invited are union companies. Tesla is not. Seems to be controlled by unions, he complained at the time. Many of the views he has espoused on Twitter over the last 2 years have become popular in today's Republican Party, but are hardly exclusive to card-carrying Republicans. His criticism of progressives he views as overly censorious and sanctimonious is a sentiment many on the left have expressed, and his public condemnation of strict COVID containment measures in 2020 channeled what would become a growing skepticism of widespread public health restrictions, though he was more exercised about them than most. Fascist, he once declared. Often, his tweets can seem to imply he leans in one direction when it's just as likely that he is trying to court controversy. Oh well, Elon Musk certainly is an interesting personality. While we can't be 100% sure of his political inclinations, it would surely be fun to see who and how he supports as the elections 2024 draw near. That's all for this video, folks. We'll see you next time.